Welcome back. This is Face the Nation. We start off the third round with Mr. Hemant Surya, who is the President's Counsel. Mr. Surya, the Attorney General's Department forwarded questions to the Prime Minister. 33 questions was raised by the Attorney General's Department. Only 20 was sent to the Prime Minister for written submissions. Why? Why not the rest of the 13?
Now that you must ask the commissioners, because the Attorney General's Department has submitted the commissioners to be their questions, and the commissioners have thought only these 20 questions are relevant and sent to the Prime Minister. And I can't understand why the Prime Minister or any witness before a commission should know the questions in advance.
Yeah.
What are the reason? I have found this in the question of civil procedure interrogatories, where sometimes it is very difficult to find people. They are abroad. They can't come to Sri Lanka. Then these questions are sent ahead. But then why should? And even if that is done, now everyone is saying the Prime Minister has come here for the first time in the history of this country. I am asking you, Samir, was there any Prime Minister who had been summoned, has been associated with this or any scam? No. There were no allegations against the Prime Minister while they were sitting on as the Prime Minister of this country. So this is the first time the Prime Minister had to come and even explain his conduct, the manner in which he because he took over the central bank under his authority, which are normally under the Minister of Finance, and he went to Parliament, defended Arjuna Mahendran, then he appointed a commission, and then did nothing about it, and he allowed, after the first scam, he allowed Arjuna Mahendran to do the second scam in March, which we lost about 3 million rupees.
Mr. Surya, a lot of people, I'll get back to you, Mr. Thanakon. Mr. Surya, a lot of people have so much of confidence on this Commission of Inquiry appointed by the President. And the President himself has said...
Not that I don't have... I'm thankful to the commissioners. I'm thankful to the commissioners because of the independent stand they have taken. A lot of people give information. I'm thankful to Mr. Sasanta Kodagoda and Mr. Dapul Rivera. In spite of various obstacles, in spite of the fact that their entire career is at jeopardy, they did all this for the country. I'm thankful to the police officers, CID officers who did this. Now, but still for all, ultimately, the commissioner will have to write a report on the evidence that is available. And once that is written, we do not know what the President would do. Even the President sends a copy of the report, then the Attorney General will have to decide on the question of indictment. Now, I'm telling you a very simple example. Ravi Karunanayaka's case, where he was indicted by the Attorney General, and he was discharged on a frivolous objection taken by the defense. And the court, on the last day she sat on the bench, she said, I'm discharging all the accused, but permitting the Attorney General file a fresh case. Have they filed it up to now? I mean, what is the explanation you can give? Because normally, there was a case in which certain objections were taken against Mr. Mahindra's brother, Basil Rajapaksa. They took an objection are upheld. Very next day they filed the indictment.
Thank you very much.
Now here, we have taken such a long time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hemant Surya, President's Counsel. But I need to remind you about the past a little bit. There should have been a second time in which a sitting Prime Minister is called before a judicial process, because we saw the manner in which, when the largest heroin nab in Sri Lanka took place, there was also a son of a former Prime Minister who was involved in this particular scam in question. Just want to bring that issue up to you, Mr. Surya. I now move my attention to Dr. W. Vijayawardena, former Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. Dr. Vijayawardena, we speak about this 3-member committee appointed by Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe, and you were an advisor to this 3-member committee as well. What was the outcome and what was the recommendations like?
Well, My role, Samir, was there to educate the three lawyers of what is meant by a bond, how the bond...
Because the lawyers were not aware.
Because they were not aware, actually. We'll have to admit the fact that... Yeah, I mean, nobody is aware of what a bond is. So I was asked by Prime Minister himself to support the committee. So I did it without getting any payment on my own. And I helped the committee members to understand the entire transaction, even to ask relevant questions from the witnesses and so forth. And when I saw the terms of reference of the committee, it completely disappointed me, because the TUR was to find out the bond issues from 2012 to 2015, of which the particular bond issue was only one instrument. So therefore, it was a kind of a diluted terms of reference. And even then, I will give credit to this Gamini Pitipana committee, because they, in their report, they have recommended, as Mr. Hemant Wanukula has said, there is a case for conducting a forensic audit. And there had been some irregularity in the public debt department of the central bank, and there is some kind of an inside information being leaked to one particular, they have said one particular primary dealer, and that has to be investigated. Then they said that the government has to take action against the people who had caused a loss to the government.
They also said their hands are tied because the terms of reference doesn't permit them to go.
I'll get back to you. Yes, Dr.
So what has happened is, none of these things were followed up by the government. And we know the results now. As a result of that, the people who had been on to the first bond scam, they became very bold, and they continued to play the game in a different manner.
Mr. Varakun, I'll get back to you. Dr. Vijayavardhana, what is important right now is to understand, you had a first bond scam, as you correctly mentioned, and then there was a second bond scam.
Not the second, Samir, it was a series of bond scams. Yeah. And but of course, the modus operandi that they had used was completely different from the first one. Because what has happened is, they had recruited, they have created this network of people operating in the state-led funds like the EPF, ETF, then Insurance Corporation, and the National Savings Bank. And all these people were brought into a network of information providers, and also the people who would act on the instructions given by the perpetual treasuries. So as a result, it was a series.
Thank you very much, Dr. W. Vijayavardhana, former Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka.
Vijayavardhana said, now if the Pitipana report was submitted to the Prime Minister, what did the Prime Minister do?
Thank you very much.
He did nothing.
Thank you very much, Mr. Varakul Surya. This is the third round. I need to give individual speakers an opportunity to express their views. I now move my attention to Mr. Rusipal Tennakon, senior banker. Mr. Tennakon, Mr. Kirti Tennakon, who is the executive director of the Campaign for Free and Fair Elections, said that what has to be focused right now is on the bond scam. But what has transpired, the involvement of former Finance Minister Ravi Karunalayake, having a penthouse in one of the biggest apartment complexes in the city, is important. Having telephone conversations with an individual who wrote a book, who said nothing went wrong, is important. It's important to understand who was in the COPE committee and what was discussed with them by Arjun Aloysius. All these are important, isn't it?
Yes. All those things are important, no doubt. And there are many other important things. The contradictions made in the statement given by the Prime Minister to the Parliament on the 17th March, very important. From my point of view, the entire focus would have been on the speech on the statement that he made on the 17th of March. That was the first official explanation that the government tendered to a commotion that went countrywide about this bond scam on the 27th. But so many contradictions are there. This Prime Minister said in his statement, this money was required to be raised, this additional sum, to pay to the contractors, road highways. In his same statement, a little below, he says this money was wanted to be sent to the development councils. Can I quote it? His own words, he says, the monies that were raised were paid to the treasury to fund the divisional level development projects. And he says that the money went there. A diabolical misrepresentation.
You want to say
I don't want to say that. In contradicting his own statement. So there are so many things. If he was properly questioned, properly cross-examined, there are several other things that should have come out. Unfortunately, the democracy of ours is a little better than Zimbabwe and a little civilized. For that reason, I think we had an undue respect paid to a witness. Without embarrassing him, he was asked to go.
When you heard the statement that was delivered by Kabir Hashim and also Malik Samaravikrama, there seems to be again a contradiction.
Definitely.
And why is that?
Definitely. The Prime Minister himself in his statement on the 17th said we wanted 15 billion. It's in black and white. And Ravi Karunanayake, the former Minister of Finance, writes a letter, undated letter, to the governor of the central bank. Oh no, it's not addressed to anybody. To whom it may concern. He sends a certificate-like thing saying that we wanted 175 billion. Or 75 billion.
Yeah, 75.
Now, all these are contradictions, no? Somebody will have to explain this. I think in the end, unfortunately, the commission needs to wind up next week or so. Unfortunately, there are so many things to which Kirti wanted so many questions asked as a member of the public. Not what he wanted asked. This is what the public is raising. And in this commission, whatever is said and done, with respect, I want to state one thing. This Mr. Dappula de Oliveira very clearly one day told in this commission that this, when he was told that don't think of the media, he said, no, I am thinking of the media because this commission is a public affair and it is in public interest. The very Gazette notification issued by the President clearly says, I appoint this commission in the national interest.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kirtan Nakon, Mr. Rustapal Thandakon, Senior Banker. I now move my attention to Mr. Kirtan Nakon, Executive Director of the Campaign for a Free and Fair Election. Mr. Nakon, you see this process being expedited. You see this process winding up, the Commission of Inquiry winding up in just a few months. We saw some extensions, but they've been able to wind up operations quite quickly. Why not have the same sort of enthusiasm when it comes to the former regime?
This is one of the concerns what we had with the issues, what we raised as the cafe, what we raised as the CHR, what we raised as the anti-corruption front. And more than 426 complaints has gone from my office to various institutions, bribery commission, special commissions, special presidential commission, the other entities, FCID, CID and all that. So the issue here, in the middle of the investigations, all of these investigations were forced to some sort of a dilution from the politicians. Most of them came from the authorities or the politicians who are directly dealing with the law and order of the situation of the country. In the other hand, when it comes to the AG's deferment, especially when it comes to the FCID cases, the files went on. We know we have collected information on 48 files which has gone to the AG's department, has not taken actions, adequate actions, speedite actions, or up to the expectations of the public on these cases. It has not happened. So there's a miscarriage of justice when it comes to that issue. And the other, one thing we are happy about this commission is that they try to address one of the most concerned, but one of the most highlighted issues in an efficient way to some extent until the last moment. The last issues, especially Kabir Hashim and Malik Samaravikrama's questioning, cross-examining, and the Prime Minister's issue today was under a question mark. But here, up to that point, we had, I mean, it was.
So, Mr. Devan, are you trying to say that Kabir Hashim and Malik Samaravikrama was not questioned properly by the Attorney General's Department?
I mean, what we are seeing here is that on the public interest, they should have questioned more technically correct way. For example, why we listed out 13 technical areas to be questioned, cross-examined by the Prime Minister was not addressed. As Mr. Rusripala Tennakon very correctly said, I was so surprised. No one questioning the statement the Prime Minister made on March 17th. In the other hand, some of the technical issues, with the directions given, the numbers, figures, which was appeared on the commission and which was highlighted black and white in the Parliament was not
Thank you very much,
not questioned.
Mr. Executive Director of the Campaign for a Free and Fair Election. I open the floor. Let's start off with Faraz.
Mr. Hemant Varnakulsurya, actually this question has been sent to me by one of our Newsline viewers, but it's welcome to be asked here. Can you please ask Mr. Hemant whether if we had an honest judiciary with a backbone, then none of these things would have happened, that they are all guilty of enabling these politicians?
Yeah. No, I don't agree with that sentiment. I think the judiciary is fair, is comparatively quite honest. In this case, what happened was that the commissioners, with their limited mandate and with their focus on the main bond scam, but did exclude the Prime Minister, and the two other ministers, and they did not question them the way that Mr. Devera questioned Ravi Karunanayake. Now that is where the fault lies. As far as Mr. Tennakon said, I must correct him. Department representative, Mr. Dappul Devera or Mr. Shasanta Kodao did not pose a single question to these two witnesses. That is the controversial thing that I went and said in the Newsline. They did not question. Only the commissioners questioned them. Then the Attorney General, the very, very mild, soft-spoken person, I mean, I questions him on the question that were already given to him, and then there were reasons he could have started the question, and as far as to show their courtesy to the Prime Minister, but permitted Dappula Devera and Yasanta Kodagada, who is very familiar with this, to question him. That was not permitted. Therefore, everyone whom I met after
it was a matter of protocol. That's what it was. A matter of protocol.
No, there was no. I agree. When the Prime Minister comes with the Attorney General, but the Attorney General normally what happens is as a special courtesy, he comes and puts forward 2 or 3 questions and then permits the person who is well versed with the subject. I mean, these two gentlemen have studied this for over 6 months. Or during the duration of the commission, and they have worked day and night. The Attorney General has only a limited focus, so therefore he would have permitted, and that was not permitted. That is why most people are concerned, like the person who made those remarks.
Dr. Yes. Vijayawardena, I was reading an interesting news report regarding a private bank in Switzerland which has been made to pay a settlement of 300 euros to France for enabling tax evaders. The reason that this caught my eye is because an individual who is the subject of the Commission of Inquiry's investigation, Mr. Arjun Mahendran, used to be the managing director of that particular bank in Switzerland. The report also says that 2 former directors of the bank may be facing legal action. We don't know whether one of them is Mr. Mahendran. But there's something important about this case, is that there has been some recovery of the monies that were taken out. As of the 27th of February, it will be 3 years since the initial alleged bond scam. And as you mentioned, there was a series of scams thereafter involving the payment of bribes to officials at state institutions. Little Charlie, Big Charlie, Little Johnny and Big Johnny. My question is this. Funds have been siphoned out of this country through billions of rupees have been siphoned out from the state through these series of scams. What steps can be taken to get any of this back?
About this, the bank in Switzerland, Nadeem, we had been telling that Joe Nexter, the founding governor of the central bank, had very clearly said the governor of the central bank should be a person of unquestioned integrity. So that would have been a matter for the appointing authority at that time, because if the person's integrity had already been tested somewhere else in the world, the person should have been appointed as the to that
because this raises two questions as well, right?
Yeah.
And you remember that specific private bank we're talking about. Back in 2013, there was a leak, the so-called Swiss leaks, where the names of several Sri Lankans were unveiled.
Yeah. But of course, about the other question that you raised,
around the same time that this person who is currently, who was,
I mean, not only that time,
was the managing director at the time.
Particular bank was again fined by the US authorities for laundering the drug money of Mexico and also the monies belonging to Iran at that time, and there had been a series of cases against that particular bank. But of course, about the recovery of this money, the process now available to Sri Lanka is to, after the report is submitted by the Commission to the President, the AG department has to take action through the normal laws of the country and then recover the money back to Sri Lanka. That's how
we have a guarantee given by the Prime Minister on your issue now. Shall I read it please? One sentence.
Yes.
That's very important.
The Prime Minister has said in his statement to Parliament on the 17th like this. මෙතන වුණු සිද්ධිය ගැන පමණක් නෙවෙයි. අතීතයේදී සිදුවුණු ඒවා ගැනත් අපි සොයා බලා කටයුතු කරනවා. ඒ හැම එකකටම අපි යම්කිසි බද්දක් පනවනවා. අවශ්‍ය නම් ඒ මුදල් ආපසු අය කරගන්නවා. Why worry? The Prime Minister says, wait till he passes the laws. He has given it to the legal draftsman already.
When will he pass the law? He sent it to the draftsman.
It is before this delay is in the Attorney General's department. They are not drafting it properly.
Mr. Denagon, I want to ask you a question. There were 31 UNP MPs and ministers who accompanied the Prime Minister to the Presidential Commission. They went in with the Prime Minister, they came out and they basically said the same thing. They said, you know, we didn't get calls from the party that was mentioned. We were not in the COPE. So ask them, ask the wrongdoers. But at this moment, they seem to be disowning the people who are supposedly the wrongdoers in the UNP. While if you take a look back at what has happened, a person writes a letter without a heading to whom it may concern. One person has an apartment. Another person writes a book. Another person sits at a meeting where he is not required to. So this has been a collective effort altogether. But now they say, no, it's not me, it's not me, it's not me. What's happening?
I think this is a case of the rats running out, no? One by one. So they dissociate themselves from the sinking ship. They dissociate themselves from these bad doings and they try to be good boys. And if they are good, well, they can continue. My own personal view is, whoever is good and who has not done anything bad can remain. And this setup can continue. But if they are bad, let them face the music.
Mr. Varnakula Surya, one of the most important things that we'll be hoping for from the report of the Commission of Inquiry is that criminality will be established, that a crime has been committed. Judging by what you've seen over the past, over the term of the Commission, the report is due on the 8th?
8th of December.
On the 8th of December. Do you see that criminality being established? Under which laws could the Attorney General then prosecute the offenders?
Yeah, I believe if the commissioners will go through the evidence, and there are two aspects of it. One is the criminal aspect of it, the civil aspect of it, where the commissioners will order civil action to be taken against them for the recovery of the money, and the criminal action for money laundering and various other offences, and also the entire scam, the whole process of what happened was a criminal element. Now that is a matter that must be decided by the Attorney General. Once the Commission makes a recommendation, the Attorney General will have to take serious cognizance of what the Commission have said and decide what course of action. They can then independently investigate and file action. But there is one problem about the money laundering. Now I believe, now what I told Faraz also, that sometimes I feel sorry that nothing would happen. Now if you examine the evidence of Ravi Karunanayake, I mean any layman could come to the conclusion he is obviously committed, obviously come within the offences under the Money Laundering Act. The monies that he kept without I mean he cannot explain.
So who should be held accountable for this? Is it
the
Attorney
I mean not only according to his own testimony, not only his family, children, everyone. But the problem is,
who should be held accountable for not taking action? Is it the Attorney General's Department?
No. I mean the evidence came only a few days ago. No, I mean, so therefore after that the Attorney General would wait till the report is completed. Yeah. But I have been always saying in public debate, the Attorney General can take cognizance of what happened in court. They don't have to wait for the report. I gave an example also. When the Lalit
So can the Bribery Commission? So can the Commission to investigate allegations of bribery?
No, not bribery. I'm saying that the criminal element of it. I said that during the independence of the Lalit Atulat Mudre Commission, when the evidence came up, absolute false evidence, but the Attorney General took action and arrested them and remanded them until the Supreme Court, discharged all of them. So my position is, even today, even now, the Attorney General can take action. But the question is, if the Attorney General did not pay any heed to a case that went on over 6 years, where a young State Counsel did admirable job of prosecuting, and they found a technical flaw in the charge sheet.
Sorry, thank you, Mr. Warankrishna. I just got to get this one in quickly here. Mr. Rusripal, you've been very quiet there. But if you were able to have asked the Prime Minister 3 questions, what would you have asked him?
My first question would be, why did you decide to appoint Arjuna Mahendra? Knowing that he is a non-citizen?
But that's not really relevant, is it?
It is.
Why?
It is relevant.
What's wrong?
It is relevant in the context of what has transpired. Now when the accountability comes, his questionability, his responsibility, all that arises out of that.
And the second question,
yes.
Why did he give this directive to the governor, and how did he expect the directive to be implemented?
And the third one?
The third one, why did he not question the new governor of the central bank when the new governor and the monetary board changed his own directive and reverted back to the previous system?
Auction system. Yeah.
It is an insult to the Prime Minister.
Mr. Denugon, I have a question to ask you. Sorry, Nanel. One question. Now, the governor of the central bank, when he was appointed, Arjuna Mahendran, was completing the tenure of the previous governor. He had 1 more year, so he was put in that to fill in that 1 year. Yeah. When the extension time came, the president advised the Prime Minister not to appoint Arjuna Mahendran as the governor of the central bank. Yeah. But the Prime Minister has once again gone against that and appointed Arjuna Mahendran when he was as the governor of the central bank. Now we see the state minister who has written a book going on a state media channel and telling that the president has not looked into this matter, the president has not instructed properly, the president has to do something about it. But hasn't the president already looked into it and said do not appoint Arjuna Mahendran as the governor?
No, the end has justified what has happened. In the end, what happened? Did Arjuna Mahendran was he reappointed? He was not. They may have tried, you know, applied pressure, all kinds of things, but in the end what happened was, he was not appointed. He was totally rejected. And the persons who were responsible to make the recommendation for the president to decide who to be appointed were asked to nominate names. And they nominated 3 names, and one was selected by the president, and he was appointed.
And in this utopian world that you might live in, what would you like to see happen at the end?
The end is very clear. Whatever happens as the recommendation of the commission, this country has concluded who the perpetrators are, what should be done to them. The public at large know that these people should never hold any positions in the future in this country.
I'm sorry, I'm just going to get this one in.
And all the illegitimately earned income, whether laws are passed or not, people will agitate that they be recovered.
And what would you do with Mr. Wickremesinghe? What would you do with him? What would the penalty be?
I mean, there's nothing special to be done with him. All what you do to others will apply to him.
Mr. Tenkon, I want to pick up on something you said in your opening, but I'm going to come to Mr. Orankulsuri on this one. I want to talk about, intervention, intrusion, government intrusion, political intrusion in these, supposedly independent bodies like the central bank and, other things like COPE sort of influences. Legally, in a legal perspective, intervention, unwarranted intervention can lead to corruption, and it does. So corruption is a crime. Legally, what is the framework that's in place to kind of monitor this or kind of convict, or what's in place in Sri Lanka to...
we have corruption, we have
specifically
the
government intervention
to investigate corruption. Bribery and corruption. I mean, that is there. But, I'm very sorry to say the process is very slow. Then the Attorney General's Department, the Criminal Investigation Department can probe into this and file appropriate action in the High Court. Why my plea to the Attorney General Department was, don't wait till the report is out. There is sufficient evidence for you to act upon, and then start an investigation, because you must understand the evidence that will be revealed at the commission cannot be used in a court of law. Right. There is some immunity. So therefore you must start an investigation. They have already started an investigation. The government must, the president must back them, and the president must take all constraints. Now at the moment they are taking personal revenge. Now from Mr. Dappula Rivera's wife is being harassed by this government. She's a government servant. Then also Mr. Jasanta Kodagoda, Mr. Ravi Karunanak has wanted a select committee appointed for the submissions he made. Then thereafter, today Mr. Sumantaran has gone to the court and said, we are going to have you, we are going to have a judicial committee to inquire into the telephone tapping case. So you understand how even the members of the TNA and in the even the JVP might
Mr. Orankulsuri, you need to take responsibility on the part that you said about Mr. Delivera's wife.
Absolutely, I have got information that she is being harassed, mainly because of the fact that she is married to Dappula Rivera.
Thank you very much. I want to very quickly move to Dr. W. Wijewardena, former Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. Dr. Wijewardena, when looking at the events that have transpired so far, we know 8th of December is going to be the final report that's going to be out. In your opinion, what should the recommendations be? I know you were also a witness. You also gave evidence under oath. I'm not going to ask you what you said at the Commission of Inquiry, but what sort of recommendations do you envisage?
Well, Samir, not only that, because I was the advisor to the first COP committee, the second COP committee also partly, and now to the Bond Commission. And the information that has come to the public domain now reveals that there had been a massive fraud of funds to the government, Employees Provident Fund, and there had been a number of people who are involved in that. So if I were given the opportunity to write this commission report, I would simply, recommend the further legal action against them.
Against who?
Against the people who are involved in this particular network.
Like who, Dr. Vijayawardena?
I mean network. Network is very clear.
The network entails who are the persons that are in this?
Yeah, it's a ring of ropes.
I'll get back to you in a minute, Mr. Nekon.
I think Ruchiripala used the correct word, ring of robes.
So the ring of rogues, who are these? Tell me a few names.
No, we don't have to say the name because the commission will come up with the names. But it's very clear to the members of the public. We don't have to mention them here.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vijayawardena. Mr. Nekon, I want to also give you an opportunity to speak about these phone calls tapping. You seem to be trying to push that aside a little bit.
No, I didn't
probably the color of your shirt itself is giving out a vibe that says it's a color green. But I want to pose a question to you. Why? Because under oath, Mr. Ravi Karunayaka said that when he was questioned about Arjuna Loyalty, he said, yes, I have met him 2 or 3 times at weddings. However, 300 calls. My heaven's sake. Even with an enemy, do you have a chat for 300 times? And then his wife over 351 times. Then the 2 daughters nearly 24, 25 times. In a span of 2 years, every day they have been speaking to Arjuna Loyalty. What do you think about this?
I think, the issue is very much clear, and we knew it from the very beginning. They are working together, and that's why after removing Arjuna Mahendran from the governor's position, he was down there in the finance ministry. He was, we were the ones who exposed that he was giving instructions. He was acting as the advisor to the finance minister to, long handle the central bank from down there from the ministry. And everyone knew that there were records. We exposed these records. We publicized some of this information. The decisions made, the influence made, we knew all that. The issue here is very clear. If Prime Minister is questioned in the same manner, you could find more than 2 dozens of cases, information to further drag it on.
Mr. Varakul, sir, lying under oath. What's the punishment?
You can be sentenced to jail.
You can be sentenced to jail.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Mr. Nekon, do you mind to mention some names?
All the ring of robes has come up to it.
Very careful indeed. Let's name a few. You have individuals who are connected. You have Ravi Karunayaka, the former finance minister. You have Arjuna Mahendran, who was involved directly, who said there is conflict of interest. You have Arjuna Loyalty, who is also among those who have swindled money from you at home. There you go. Some names for you to rethink. Faraz, any questions?
I think really we need to ask Dr. Vijayawardena. Let him have the last say on this, and it's a very important question because I'm asking it on behalf of the people who've lost all this money. Are there rules now within the central bank's procedures and so on that can recover any of this money right now from the funds held or blocked by the central bank that belong to perpetual treasuries?
No, central bank cannot do that for us because any recovery should be done by through a judicial process by a court of law. What the central bank can do is central bank can request the Attorney General to file cases against the people, and the courts will have to, whatever the money that has been blocked by the central bank, the courts will have to say this is the way that this has to be collected, and it's actually a further judicial process.
What can the central bank do to errant licensed primary dealers?
Central bank can cancel the license. Central bank can.
But when they cancel the license, what happens to the asset in there?
No, when they cancel the license, the company will be liquidated.
Right.
And when they liquidate, because there are in the company there are creditors, and the creditors will get access to the assets. But of course, if there is theft of the money and that money had been accumulated in the company, through a judicial process, the country's court system can recover that money from the company.
But not the moment the central bank frees some of these bank accounts of the perpetual treasurers. This was something we were highlighting. Go for the judicial process. The judicial process has to be started. It's too late now. It's getting late. Each and every time we have, whenever we are talking about this issue, we have highlight. Start the process. The central bank did the right thing by freezing these accounts. What is the next step? Why is the delay to go to the next step is our question.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your thoughts in the first, second and third and fourth rounds. We're now going for a short commercial break. When we come back, it's the final round. What will happen next? All this and more after the short commercial break. Stay connected. Stay with Face the Nation.